The Galactic Council Hall was a place of shining light and endless pride. Tall golden pillars reached up to the ceiling, where energy crystals glowed like small suns. Every species in the galaxy had a seat there, tall, scaled beings from the rim worlds, winged diplomats from the Nebula Kingdom, and machine minds from the Orion Core. They had gathered to discuss a matter that had shaken their calm universe: humanity's return. The doors opened with a soft, metallic sound. A single human walked in. He was not dressed like a warrior or a noble. No armor, no crown, no glowing emblems of power, only a dark suit, clean and simple. His hair was neatly combed, his face calm, and his steps silent. Yet every movement carried weight, as if gravity itself bent slightly around him. The room grew quiet, but only for a moment. Then came the laughter. "Is that the human envoy?" one of the delegates hissed. "So fragile. I expected a soldier, not a boy." "Perhaps Earth ran out of real warriors," another chuckled. The man did not answer. He walked toward the center podium, his eyes fixed ahead, not even glancing at the towering alien figures around him. Behind him, a massive statue of an ancient conqueror, the Titan of Unity, watched over the hall. It was the symbol of galactic authority, a reminder of who ruled these stars. The human stopped beneath that statue. He looked up at it for a brief second, then faced the crowd. His voice when he spoke was quiet, but it carried through the entire chamber. "My name is Elias Ward," he said. "Envoy of Earth." The sound of his words echoed against the marble walls. Even the machines paused their data feeds for a moment. Something in his tone felt heavy, not loud, not angry, just firm. The High Chancellor of the Council, a tall, silver-skinned being named Vorel, leaned forward from his throne. "Humanity returns to our council after centuries of silence," he said. "And you come without an army? Without respect?" Elias smiled faintly. "I was told this is a place for peace." That only made them laugh harder. "Peace?" The Chancellor sneered. "You forget, human. Your kind once burned half the outer colonies during your Chaos Age. Peace is not yours to offer." Elias stood still. The light from the ceiling reflected softly in his eyes, showing neither pride nor fear, only patience. "I am not here to discuss the past," he said calmly. "I'm here to discuss the future." The Chancellor's fingers tapped against his throne, producing a metallic ring. "And what future does your dying world have to offer us?" Whispers rippled through the hall. Every species had heard the stories: Earth's decline, its wars, its silence for almost 200 years. Many believed humanity had destroyed itself, but the envoy did not answer the insult. He looked up again at the giant statue behind him, and his expression changed just slightly. There was a spark in his eyes, something unreadable. "Do you know why Earth stayed silent?" he asked softly. The question was strange. The council members looked at each other, confused. The Chancellor frowned. "Because you were broken," he said. "Because your species was lost." Elias shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "Because we were rebuilding." The room fell into an odd silence. For the first time, the calm confidence in the alien voices faded. "Rebuilding?" one of them repeated, unsure whether to laugh again or not. Elias stepped closer to the center, his hands behind his back. "We watched," he said, "from the edge of your wars, from the shadows of your peace, and we learned." The lights dimmed slightly as if the energy in the hall shifted. The AI delegates recalibrated their sensors. Some biological species instinctively pulled back. The human's tone was steady, but there was something behind it, something old and powerful. The Chancellor stood, his voice rising. "You dare threaten this council?" "I dare speak truth," Elias replied. His calmness was more unsettling than anger could ever be. From the upper balconies, guards moved slightly, hands resting on their plasma staffs. The air grew heavier. Elias looked around the hall at hundreds of eyes watching him, mocking him, judging him. Then his gaze returned to the Chancellor. "You think of humans as weak," he said softly, "as a forgotten race. You believe you control this galaxy." He took one slow step forward. "But you don't understand what happens when you mock something that refuses to die." Whispers turned into silence again. Even the Chancellor did not move. The way the human stood, still confident, felt unnatural. It wasn't arrogance. It was something else. One of the younger delegates, a crystalline being of light, leaned forward. "You speak as if you are more than what you appear," it said. Elias looked at it, his eyes calm. I am just a messenger, he said. Then, after a pause, he added, but not all messages are safe to ignore. Something about those words struck deep. A cold feeling spread across the room, the kind that came before storms. The Chancellor finally raised his hand. Enough, he said. Your time is done, human. You will show respect to this council or be removed. Elias tilted his head slightly, studying the massive figure of the Chancellor. Respect? He repeated softly. You'll have it. When you've earned it. The guard stepped forward. Elias didn't move. For a second, every sound in the hall seemed to fade, the rustle of robes, the hum of energy. Only one sound remained, the faint, slow echo of the human's footsteps as he turned to face them. I came here for peace, he said, his voice now calm and low, almost whispering. But peace is not what you want. The guards froze, unsure why. Every scanner in the hall suddenly flickered with static. The lights dimmed again, and the ancient statue behind him seemed to glow faintly in the golden light, its eyes catching fire from the reflection. Elias looked back at the council one last time, his tone quiet but sharp as steel. You don't know what you've done. Then he walked toward the exit, leaving behind silence thicker than space itself. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council felt afraid. The next morning, the Galactic Council summoned Elias Ward again. Rumors had already spread across the capital. Every corridor, every broadcast, every alien official was whispering about the human who dared speak like an equal inside the Council of Worlds. Some called him brave. Most called him foolish. The chamber looked even grander this time. Shining metal walls, golden rails, and holographic banners of 1,000 species. At the far end sat the High Chancellor Vorel, his face hard and cold. The light from the ceiling formed a glowing circle above his throne, making him appear divine. When Elias entered, the laughter began again, soft but sharp. There he is, a delegate said, smirking, the peace envoy from the dying world. I wonder if humans still know how to kneel, another added, voice dripping with mockery. Elias walked quietly to the center, standing exactly where he had stood the day before. The air felt heavier now, thick with judgment. The Chancellor rose from his throne. Human, he said, his voice echoing across the hall. You were invited here as a guest of diplomacy, yet you come with arrogance. You speak to the Council as if you are our equal. I speak as a representative of Earth, Elias replied calmly. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. Earth, he repeated. A forgotten rock on the edge of the Orion Arm. Your world barely survived its own wars. You bring no fleets, no allies, no power. You bring only words. Elias did not flinch. His voice stayed soft. Words can build peace. The Chancellor's tone turned cruel. Words can also destroy, he said, and you have chosen the wrong ones. The audience laughed again. Their voices rolled like a storm, full of scorn and superiority. The laughter was not just at him, it was at humanity itself. Elias lowered his gaze for a moment. The sound of their mockery echoed in his mind, but his heartbeat remained steady. He remembered his training, the years under the cold stars, learning restraint when provoked. He had been chosen not for strength, but for control. Still, something stirred inside him, a spark buried deep under the calm surface. The Chancellor stepped down from his platform and walked closer. His towering silver form shimmered under the light. Tell me, human, he said with a smile that held no kindness, why should this council respect you? You have no seat here. You have no strength to bargain with. Elias looked up slowly, meeting his gaze. Because respect isn't given, he said quietly. It's earned. That answer made the Chancellor's smile fade. The laughter stopped too. The room went silent for a brief second. Then the Chancellor's voice boomed like thunder. You dare lecture me? I have ruled for 5 centuries. I have seen empires rise and burn. And now a single human dares to teach me? Elias did not move. His eyes were calm but unyielding. I didn't come to teach, he said. I came to remind. Remind. Vorel repeated. Of what? Elias took a slow breath. Of what happens when the powerful forget humility. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Chancellor's eyes glowed faintly blue, a sign of his rising temper. Enough, he growled. You stand here under our mercy and you dare. Suddenly Elias spoke again, interrupting him. Do you know what you're truly afraid of, Chancellor? The room went silent. No one ever interrupted the High Chancellor. You're afraid, Elias continued, that humanity survived without you, that we learned to grow in silence, that we no longer need your approval. The Chancellor's expression darkened. Remove him, he ordered coldly. Guards began to step forward, but before they reached him, Elias raised his hand slightly. I haven't finished speaking, he said softly. The guards hesitated. They didn't know why, but something about his voice made them stop. Even their weapons trembled slightly in their hands, as if the energy inside them flickered. Elias turned back to the Chancellor. You wanted submission, he said, but all you've shown is fear hidden behind pride. The Chancellor slammed his hand on the podium. Enough! The hall shook. The sound echoed like thunder. Humanity was meant to be controlled, Vorel shouted. We gave your species technology, trade, access to the stars, and you repaid us with war.
You are violent, unstable, dangerous. You don't belong in this council or in this galaxy.
Elias's calm expression broke slightly. His eyes hardened. You speak of violence, he said quietly. But it wasn't humans who enslaved half the rim worlds. It wasn't humans who burned the Vega colonies for resources. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The Chancellor glared, but Elias did not stop. You call us dangerous, Elias continued. Maybe you're right, but we are dangerous because we remember every loss, every insult, every promise broken by this council. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The Chancellor took a deep breath, his voice turning low and sharp. You threaten us, human? Elias shook his head. No, he said simply. I warn you. The Chancellor stared for a long time, then laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Warn us? You alone? What could one human do to the might of the Galactic Council? Elias looked up, eyes glowing faintly in the golden light. You mock what you don't understand, he said. But you will. The guards moved closer again, weapons ready. But before they touched him, the lights in the chamber flickered. The air hummed with static. The Council's floating data screens glitched for a split second, showing symbols no one recognized. Ancient human code. Elias tilted his head slightly, eyes distant, as if listening to something far away. Do you hear it? He whispered. The Chancellor frowned. Hear what? The storm, Elias said softly, and then as quickly as it started, the power returned to normal. The light stabilized. The Council looked around, confused and shaken. The human smiled faintly. You think I'm just a man, he said, but I carry more than myself. What does that mean? A delegate demanded. Elias didn't answer. He turned, stepping toward the exit. His voice, however, carried clearly through the hall. You wanted a monster, he said quietly. You'll see one soon. The doors closed behind him, leaving the Council frozen in silence. High Chancellor Vorel sank slowly into his throne, the echo of the human's words lingering like a ghost. No one dared to speak. Even the sound of breathing felt too loud. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. Not in the sky, but deep within the planet's power grid, as if something vast and unseen had just awakened. And for the first time in centuries, the Council of Worlds realized they might have gone too far. The great chamber of the Galactic Council remained silent long after the human envoy left. His words, calm yet sharp, echoed in the minds of everyone present. Delegates who once mocked him now avoided each other's gaze. Something about the man's presence had felt wrong. No, not wrong. Heavy. For centuries, the Council had ruled without challenge. But now whispers began to crawl through the corridors like cold wind. Was he bluffing? One alien asked. Maybe it was just human drama, another said nervously. But none of them sounded sure. That night, High Chancellor Vorel stood alone in his chamber, staring through the tall glass window that showed the city lights of Galthera Prime. His mind burned with confusion and anger. He's just one man, Vorel muttered. One human. He cannot threaten us. But still, the Chancellor felt something strange, the faint sense of being watched. He turned toward the corner of the room where his AI assistant shimmered to life. Status report, Vorel ordered. Where is the human envoy? Located in the lower diplomatic wing, the AI replied. No sign of movement. Monitoring his actions. Good, the Chancellor said, his tone cold. Prepare the guards. I want him gone by sunrise. Far below, in the quiet hallways of the diplomatic wing, Elias Ward sat alone in his small guest chamber. The room was simple, Just a bed, a table, and a single dim light. Outside the large window, the capital's night sky glowed with thousands of hovering ships and bright towers. He sat in silence, hands resting on the table. In front of him was a small metal ring. It looked ordinary, worn silver with faint scratches, but to him it meant everything. His reflection stared back at him from the ring's surface. His eyes, calm as ever, held a faint glimmer. "You tried, Elias," he whispered to himself. Peace was never their goal. He reached for the small communicator on his wrist. It pulsed with a soft blue light. A deep voice answered instantly. "Command, this is Envoy Ward. Contingency Sigma is active." A long pause. Then a voice replied, distant but steady. "Confirmed. Standing by." Elias placed the ring on the table and whispered something too quiet to hear. A single drop of light pulsed through it, like a heartbeat. Meanwhile, in the upper levels, alarms suddenly flickered on. "Energy fluctuations in diplomatic sector," a security officer shouted.
Unidentified power spike.
Vorel's eyes widened. "Seal the area." Guards rushed through the corridors, weapons drawn. But as they approached the human's chamber, every light went out. The corridor fell into darkness, pitch black. Then a soft hum filled the air. The guards froze. One of them whispered, "Do you hear that?" It was like the faint sound of wind, yet they were inside a sealed metal structure. The doors to the chamber opened on their own. Inside, the human sat exactly where he had been, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "What is this?" the lead guard demanded.
Stay where you are.
Elias didn't move. "You shouldn't have come," he said softly. "Stand down." The guard shouted again, and then everything stopped. Their weapons, powered by plasma cores, flickered and died. The lights along the walls shut down in a perfect sequence, one after another. The floor trembled, not from footsteps, but from something deeper, as if the station itself was afraid. The lead guard stepped back, breathing hard. This is impossible." Elias slowly stood. "You call yourselves the rulers of the galaxy," he said quietly. "But you don't even control your own machines." He picked up the ring from the table and slipped it onto his finger. The moment it touched his skin, a wave of energy rippled through the room. All the guards collapsed to their knees, not out of pain, but pressure. Invisible gravity pressed against them like a great unseen hand. The AI systems began to whisper. Holographic screens blinked into existence, flashing warnings written in ancient Terran script. "Identity confirmed, classified entity, Baba Yaga protocol." The words repeated across every screen in the building. The guards' eyes widened in horror. "Be Baba Yaga?" One of them stammered. "That's just a human legend." Elias looked at him calmly. "Legends," he said, "are born for a reason." Up in the council tower, Vorel's room filled with red light. "Chancellor," his AI screamed. "Multiple system overrides. Source, human envoy chamber. We're locked out." Vorel spun toward the main screen. The human's image appeared, standing calm in the middle of the chaos. "What are you doing?" the Chancellor roared. Elias's voice came through the speakers, cold and clear. "I warned you, Chancellor. You laughed. You mocked my people. You tried to erase us. Now you will remember us. You think this will scare us?" Vorel spat. Elias didn't answer immediately. His eyes turned toward the sky beyond the window. "Look up," he said softly. The Chancellor frowned and turned toward the open skyline. For a moment he saw only stars, but then shadows began to move among them. Hundreds of shapes, no, ships, appeared out of the void. Dark, silent, colossal, they moved in perfect formation, blocking out entire sectors of the sky. Every single one bore the same symbol, a small blue circle crossed by silver wings, the mark of Earth's forgotten defense fleet. "Impossible," Vorel whispered. "Those ships were destroyed centuries ago." Elias's voice came again, quiet and firm. "We don't destroy. We rebuild, in silence, in shadows. While you ruled, we remembered who we were." Panic spread through the city below as alarms wailed across the skyline. Civilian ships scrambled to retreat, but the human fleet didn't fire a single shot. They just waited. Back in the council chamber, Vorel screamed, "You'll bring war!" Elias finally looked straight at the camera. "You brought it the moment you mocked peace." For a moment, the two leaders, alien and human, stared at each other through the holographic screen, neither blinking. One filled with fury, the other with calm resolve. "Stand down, human." Vorel shouted. We'll destroy you. Elias smiled faintly. You can try, he said. But remember, Baba Yaga doesn't knock twice. The signal cut. The screens went dark, and in the cold silence that followed, the council realized the truth. Humanity had never vanished. They had been watching, preparing, waiting, and now they were awake. The sky above Galthera Prime burned with silent light. Thousands of human dreadnoughts hung in orbit, motionless, vast, and cold. They did not fire. They did not move. They simply watched like ghosts risen from the past. Inside the council tower, panic had erupted. Alarms screamed, communication channels burst with overlapping signals, and guards ran in every direction. The Council of Worlds, once proud and fearless, now trembled beneath the shadow of the fleet they swore had been destroyed centuries ago. High Chancellor Vorel stood frozen before the central window, his reflection trembling in the glass. They cannot be real, he whispered. It's a trick. It has to be a trick. But deep down he already knew. Those ships were real. Their dark hulls carried scars older than most of the species in that chamber, and every one of them answered to one man. Far below, Elias Ward walked calmly through the golden corridors of the council tower. Red lights flashed around him. Armed guards hid behind walls, unsure whether to confront or flee. The human's pace never changed. Slow, deliberate, soundless. The automated security systems built to protect the council didn't even recognize him as a threat. Instead, they shut down one by one as he passed. Doors opened on their own. Cameras turned away. He reached the grand chamber in the very heart of the Galactic Council and stopped in the center of the vast marble floor. Above him, holographic maps of the galaxy flickered and stuttered, thousands of dots marking every inhabited system. Then, the light steadied. Every map changed at once. The glowing dots rearranged themselves into new clusters, ones the Council had never seen. New territories appeared where none should exist. Entire sectors showed energy signatures belonging to human ships. The galaxy gasped. Elias looked up at the display. His voice was calm, almost quiet. You thought Earth was dying, he said. But while you argued over who ruled the stars, we built in silence. We built beyond your reach, delegates shouted, demanding explanations. Some screamed for their fleets to mobilize. Vorel appeared on the high balcony, his voice cutting through the chaos. You expect us to believe this? He barked. You bring an army to threaten us, human? To force our surrender? Elias looked at him with calm eyes. I bring proof, he said. Proof that humanity never needed your approval. The Chancellor's face twisted with rage. You are bluffing, he shouted. Those ships cannot be yours. No one hides a fleet that size. Elias turned toward the balcony. His eyes gleamed faintly under the golden lights. You've forgotten, Chancellor, he said softly. Humans were born on a death world. We learned to hide from extinction itself. You cannot imagine what survival taught us, the Chancellor sneered, raising his hand. Guards, end this madness! Dozens of armored soldiers poured into the chamber, their weapons glowing blue. They surrounded Elias from all sides. He didn't move. One guard hesitated, whispering, He's unarmed. Then finish it, Vorel commanded. The soldiers raised their weapons, but before they fired, every gun in the room went dead. A wave of static surged through the chamber, flickering the lights. The weapons powered down like candles in the wind. Then came the hum. Low at first, deep and mechanical, resonating through the marble floor. The council members covered their ears as the sound built, the ancient voice of something enormous waking from slumber. The ring on Elias's hand glowed bright white. He looked up, his face lit by that light. You still think this is about me, he said softly. It's not. It's about what we became when you left us to die. The walls of the chamber rippled with light as holograms filled the space. Massive human warships, silent and cold, hovered above alien worlds. Each projection showed the same scene, human fleets appearing, never firing, simply waiting. This is not war, Elias said, his tone steady. It's remembrance. You forgot what humans were capable of when pushed. I am here to remind you. The Chancellor slammed his fist against the railing. You're monsters. He shouted. Elias's gaze rose to meet his. No, he said quietly. You made us into what we needed to be. The chamber fell silent again. Even the sound of machinery faded. He looked at the alien leaders, their glowing eyes filled with fear. "We came to this galaxy asking for peace," Elias said. "You laughed. You mocked. You struck us down. You told us we were lesser." He stepped forward. His voice, though soft, cut through the air like thunder. "You forgot one truth. Humanity doesn't bow. We learn, we endure, and when we rise, we remember who made us bleed." No one dared to speak. The Council's pride, its centuries of power, now felt like dust. Elias took a deep breath and turned toward the central console. He touched his ring to the surface. The entire hall shook as the main holographic map zoomed in, revealing the heart of human space. Thousands of colonies, connected by glowing threads of light, pulsed with energy. In the center, one symbol burned brighter than all, a blue and gold emblem with a single word beneath it: Earth. Elias looked up, his voice steady but filled with meaning. "We don't seek your destruction," he said. "We seek balance, respect, the peace you denied us." A trembling delegate whispered, "If you have such power, why not destroy us?" Elias turned to him. "Because destruction is easy," he said. "Mercy is harder." For a long time no one spoke. Even Vorarel was silent, his pride collapsing under the weight of what he'd just witnessed. The human slowly lowered his hand and the lights in the chamber dimmed back to normal. "Earth does not want war," he said softly. "But if war comes, we will not run." He turned and began walking toward the exit. Behind him, the delegates whispered among themselves, still shaken. Some spoke of surrender, some of revenge. None spoke of peace, but Elias did not stop. At the door, he paused and looked back once. "Tell your worlds," he said. "Tell them the humans have returned, not as prey, but as memory." He left the chamber in silence, his footsteps echoing like drums of history, and high above the planet, the human dreadnoughts remained still, watching, waiting, for the galaxy to decide whether it wanted peace or extinction. The galaxy had never known silence like this. For thousands of years, the stars had been alive with noise, communication signals, trade routes, war transmissions, and endless chatter between empires. But now, nothing. The human fleet hung over Galthera Prime like a silent storm. Not a single weapon fired, not a single ship moved. The colossal dreadnoughts, black as obsidian and glimmering under the starlight, floated in perfect formation, their engines whispering with quiet power. Across the galaxy, every channel, every network, every world broadcasted one single image: the fleet above the capital of the Council. The message was clear: humanity had returned. In the Council Tower, panic turned to paralysis. Delegates from 100 species filled the Grand Chamber, their voices breaking into overlapping shouts. "They will attack." "No, they're waiting." "We should strike first." "Strike? With what? Our fleets can't even get near them." The Council's pride had evaporated. Fear, something they had never known in centuries, now filled every word they spoke. High Chancellor Vorel stood alone at his balcony, watching the fleet's reflection shimmer across the golden glass walls. His advisors whispered behind him, begging for orders, but he ignored them. His claws tapped against the railing, a nervous rhythm he couldn't stop. He had spent his life believing the galaxy's power belonged to him and his kind. But now, as he watched those silent human ships, he felt small. Very small. Down below in the Council Plaza, crowds of citizens had gathered, aliens of all shapes and colors staring up at the sky. No one spoke. Some trembled. Some prayed. Others simply stood, unable to understand what they were seeing. A child tugged on his mother's arm and pointed up. "Mama, so are those gods?" The mother didn't answer. Her voice was gone. The human ships reflected the sun's light like blades. Their hulls bore no symbols, no flags, no numbers. Just clean, smooth metal and faint blue lines that pulsed like veins of light. They looked ancient, alive, patient. The people didn't know it yet, but every ship was linked, not by radio or signal, but by something deeper. A network older than most empires. A human design called the Mind Bridge, built during Earth's centuries of silence. Every captain, every ship, every AI, connected by will alone. Elias Ward was the bridge's key. Inside the Council Tower, the transmission chamber glowed as Elias stood before a massive circular screen. Thousands of council leaders appeared in shimmering holograms, the most powerful figures in the galaxy, now staring at one quiet man. You have no right, one of them hissed. This is intimidation. Elias looked at them, calm as ever. No, he said softly. This is memory. The room went still. He turned slightly and the hologram behind him changed, showing a timeline. Wars, broken treaties, worlds burned by greed, the faces of those who mocked humanity decades ago. We remember everything, Elias said. Every colony you took, every voice you silenced, every treaty you broke when we were weak. He pointed to the timeline, and it faded into a single symbol, the mark of Earth, glowing softly in blue and gold. Now we stand here, he continued, not to destroy you, but to show you what fear feels like when it looks back. The council members shifted uncomfortably. None dared to interrupt. The chancellor finally spoke. His voice was heavy, almost broken. What do you want, human? Elias looked up. Respect, he said simply. The same respect you give yourselves. Nothing more. And if we refuse? Elias's tone didn't change. Then we leave you to your own fear. Fear can be a better teacher than war. The silence that followed was heavier than any threat. Far above, one of the dreadnoughts began to move. A ship so large its shadow covered half the planet's horizon. The ground shook slightly as its engines rumbled with slow, deliberate power. Every defense system on the planet triggered instantly. Thousands of cannons aimed upward. But the human ship didn't attack. It opened its bay doors. A beam of light descended. Not fire, not destruction. Just a silent projection, scanning the city below. Within seconds, every weapon, every satellite, every fleet control system across the planet powered down. The aliens stared in disbelief. Their strongest technologies had been turned off with a single silent pulse. Elias's voice echoed through the council's speakers. You see? We could have destroyed you. But we didn't, because power without control is chaos, and chaos is what we learned to survive. Across the galaxy, messages began to spread. Humanity demands peace. The Council has bowed. Earth has awakened. But on Earth, there were no celebrations. No parades. Only silence. Humanity had been preparing for centuries, not to rule but to protect themselves from ever being ruled again. In the orbiting flagship Erebus, human commanders watched the transmissions. Admiral Kale's voice came through the intercom. Envoy Ward, the fleets await your order. Shall we stand down? Elias looked out at the stars. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly he replied, Stand by, Admiral. Let them understand what restraint looks like. Yes, sir. The transmission ended. He turned back to the council holograms. The alien leaders still stared at him, some angry, some humbled, all silent. Today, Elias said softly, you've seen what peace costs us to protect. We never wanted fear, but you forced us to use it. Voral lowered his head. His voice trembled for the first time. And if we offer peace now? Elias stepped forward. Then remember this moment. The galaxy survives not because of fear, but because humanity chose mercy. He turned off the transmission. The holograms vanished, leaving him alone in the glowing chamber. He exhaled slowly, almost sadly. Peace through fear, he whispered, only if we must. Outside, the dreadnoughts began to move again, not toward the planet, but away. One by one they turned, their massive engines lighting up the void like suns. The sky brightened as the ships slowly faded into hyperspace, leaving behind only silence and reflection. From the planet's surface, the people watched in awe. The stars returned to view, clearer than ever. For the first time, the galaxy understood that humanity didn't seek domination, only the right to exist without chains. And as Elias Ward walked away from the council tower, the air around him felt different. No guards, no shouts, no mockery, just quiet respect. The storm had passed, but its echo would remain forever. The war that never happened became the story that no one forgot. Across the stars, the tale spread faster than light, the day the humans returned. No shots fired, no cities burned, no fleets destroyed. Yet somehow the galaxy changed forever. Every species, from the smallest trading colony to the grandest empire, spoke the same name with quiet awe, Elias Ward, the man who stood alone before the Galactic Council, the man who carried the shadow of 1,000 silent ships, The man they called the Baba Yaga of Earth. Weeks passed. The skies over Galthera Prime were calm again. The human fleet had vanished into the void as silently as it came, leaving behind nothing but light trails across the stars. Inside the council tower, repairs continued, broken systems, shattered pride, and frightened hearts were slowly being rebuilt. The once mighty hall, where arrogance had echoed for centuries, now carried a different kind of silence. Respect. High Chancellor Vorel sat alone in the empty chamber. The Grand Throne, once his symbol of power, felt heavier now. His hands trembled slightly as he reviewed the new treaties, all rewritten in one day after Elias's departure. Peace, fair trade, mutual defense, respect. For the first time in galactic history, humans were not just allowed. They were invited to sit among the stars as equals. Vorel closed the document and looked up. The giant statue that once represented galactic unity seemed hollow now. He remembered how Elias had stood beneath it, quiet but unshaken. He whispered softly, maybe he was the unity we needed all along, far away. In the quiet orbit of an unnamed blue planet, the human dreadnought Erebus drifted among the clouds. Inside its command deck, Elias Ward stood near a wide viewing window, watching the sunrise over a world untouched by war. Behind him, Admiral Kale approached silently. It's done, he said. The Council has signed the accord. All species have agreed to peace terms under Earth's observation. Elias didn't turn around. Observation, he repeated. Not rule. Not control. Just balance, Kale nodded. Still, sir, they fear us now. Elias's reflection in the glass smiled faintly. Fear fades, he said. But respect, and that lasts longer. The Admiral hesitated. Do you think they'll keep their word this time? Elias's gaze drifted to the stars. No one keeps peace forever, he said quietly. That's why we'll always be watching. Kyle said nothing. He knew the Envoy well enough to understand what that meant. Humanity would remain in the shadows, unseen but present, the silent guardian of a fragile peace. News of Elias spread like myth. On frontier worlds, children whispered stories about the ghost of Earth. On mining colonies, workers painted symbols of the human fleet on walls for protection. Even on planets where humans had never set foot, people spoke the same words. Do not mock the small ones. They might be from Earth. Elias Ward had become something more than a man. He had become a lesson. One evening, he walked alone through the observation deck of the Erebus. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, bright and calm. He touched the ring on his finger, the same one that had once lit up the council chamber. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to breathe freely. The war that never was had left him tired in ways no battle could. Behind him, a young officer approached hesitantly. Sir, she said softly, the council has sent a message. They request your presence as a friend. Elias turned, surprised. A friend? Yes, sir, they want to honor you. He smiled faintly. Honor doesn't interest me. But peace does, the officer nodded. Then what should we tell them? Elias looked out the window again. The reflection of his face mixed with the stars. Tell them humanity remembers their promise. Tell them we'll be near, unseen but listening. A few days later, on a remote planet, a young alien boy sat beside his grandfather. The elder was frail, his silver eyes staring at the sunset. Grandfather, the boy asked, is it true that the human could destroy all of us if he wanted? The old alien chuckled softly. Perhaps, he said, but he didn't, and that's what makes the story worth remembering. Why didn't he? The child pressed. Why didn't he punish them for mocking him? The elder looked up at the stars. Because true strength isn't about showing power. It's about knowing when not to use it. The boy thought about that, then asked, do you think he'll come back? The old one smiled faintly. He never left, he said. Every time we choose peace over pride, he's here, somewhere among the stars. Back aboard the Erebus, Elias stood on the deck as the ship prepared to jump into hyperspace. The stars outside stretched into glowing white lines. He closed his eyes for a moment and whispered to himself, peace through fear. Only if we must. Then he opened his eyes again, looking calm, resolute, human. Set course for Sol, he said. Let the galaxy heal. Yes, sir, the helmsman replied. The engines roared softly, and in a burst of silent light, the Erebus vanished into the folds of hyperspace, leaving behind nothing but a faint glimmer, like a heartbeat in the dark. Across the stars, the galaxy breathed again. The Galactic Council rebuilt. Trade reopened. Old enemies met at the same tables again. But something had changed. Something no power could erase. Every empire, no matter how proud, now kept one part of its fleets pointed quietly toward the void, toward the direction where Earth ships had disappeared, not in hatred, not in fear, but in remembrance. And somewhere, beyond the reach of any scanner, a lone human ship drifted through the dark, silent, patient, eternal. Its message to the stars was simple. We are humanity. We came in peace. But if peace fails, remember who we are. And thus, the legend of Elias Ward, the human envoy, the Baba Yaga of Earth, passed into galactic memory, not as a conqueror, not as a savior, but as a reminder that even in silence humanity endures. The galaxy would never mock them again. Because sometimes the quietest voice echoes the loudest.